Alrighty, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Paid in Passion, where we let our passion work for us. Today, guys, we have a very, very special episode. We now have our first interview that is not conducted inside the U.S. So I think this is very exciting for Paid in Passion and where we're going. So could you just go ahead and introduce yourself, where you live, and the passion that's paying you right now?
Yeah, thank you, Joshua. So my name is Deepak. You can probably tell immediately from my accent that I'm British. I have been living in Italy for the last several years. I relocated from London, where I'm born and raised, back in 2023. For the last decade, because I turned 40 this year, so I always think in my life in terms of decades, 20 to 30, 30 to 40. So my last 10 years, if you will, have been spent, let's call it, building a bit of a personal MBA in business. Specifically, what that means is running my company. It started as a marketing agency, I guess. I've always enjoyed marketing for Pearl Lemon, and it's since it's since gathered a life all of itself. We're 123 people spread across, I think, 5 operating businesses, all running profitable, anything between the 5 to 7 figure range, and that's kind of what I'm doing today, I guess, in a nutshell.
Awesome. That sounds great. First and foremost, I think I just have to kick it off with how we even got this together.
Yeah.
So I can share my perspective, and then you can share your perspective, and just to see how it was.
Yeah, absolutely.
For me, I was actually initially it was an email. Back in 2024, I received an email, and it was a shocking email to receive. You introduced yourself, and you said that you've seen a episode or two about the show, and that you were interested in being a guest on here. And when I saw that you said that you lived in Italy, I was like, oh wow, maybe this is a scam. Like, how is somebody? First and foremost, I didn't know that it was even reaching Italy at all, or outside even my area. And then for someone to send an email out, I was like, this might be too good to be true. And then even the crazy thing is that I didn't see the initial email.
Okay.
Because of our time differences during that time. I just missed that email, and you even sent a follow-up email that I ended up seeing the following when I ended up waking up. But then when I replied via email, that's the time I think I lost you. Everything just got lost in communication then. So I was like, oh man, like this was a great opportunity, and I replied too late. So that's 2024. And then the following year, I thought about it again randomly. I said, I have to find this person again. Okay, I looked you up on LinkedIn. I said, okay. I saw, I think I followed for a while. Then I saw one of your posts come up. I know you do a lot of, a couple posts that you make on LinkedIn. I was like, oh, you know what? Let me just go ahead and try to message this person. Messaged you. You replied back. It was still a little back and forth. So I said, okay, maybe if I try to maintain or get a good communication through WhatsApp. I was like, okay. So once we were able to get the WhatsApp number, I said, okay, I think now this looks good. So, we just communicated and, we're able to. I know it's 2:37 a.m. over here where I am. So, and then what time is it over there?
It's 9:37 a.m.
Okay, awesome. So I'm glad that we were able. I know the schedules and everything, but I'm definitely glad that we can get this.
Well, no, thank you, Joshua. I remember I'm a big fan of podcasts in general. What happens sometimes is that some of my team will surface podcasts that they think, look, check this out. We think it's going to be something that you would appreciate. And of course, when it's called anything related to, as you said, being paid in passion, because of the way that I built my life, I thought, okay. I checked out a piece of it back in 2024, and I think that's when it was like, okay, no, if I could be part of this podcast, it's great. I don't really look at it in respect of size and like the team go digging, and then I think, as you said, maybe with the first email you didn't reply, and then maybe there were a couple of replies from one or two other people, and then there's periods where I will maybe want to, share. Let's call it share my story, or just re-engage. And there's periods where I withdraw as well. So it was just at that apex where then it's been a while, and thank God your timing was impeccable, because obviously I reached out to you, and then you connected on LinkedIn, and it was just at that time where I thought, okay, I want to maybe start being a little bit more public. Again, as I did a bit of a rebrand, and once we got onto WhatsApp, it's much more straightforward with me on WhatsApp. On every other medium, I have people that manage my accounts, and I'm pretty terrible always at replying. But if I can get connected with someone on WhatsApp, then it's much easier. As we've seen for this morning, I'm sending you videos saying, "Hey, I've lost my dog in the wood. Hang on."
Yeah, just even seeing like the videos, the infrastructure of everything, I'm like, wow, I'm really about to have a guest that's in a whole other continent, and just looking, the roads and just the videos of your dogs and stuff. I was like, oh, this is real now. So yeah, that's good. So I can even ask you. So when you saw, again, you just saw the title, Paid and Passion. Like, what resonated with you? What was something that really kind of just, what about you or your journey?
Yeah, absolutely.
Really,
I think that so where I live now is, I'm in a village of 1,000 people, right? And I grew up in the city of London, and I forget, to be honest with you, because my wife, she's an osteopath and Pilates instructor, but we both work from home fundamentally. And when you live in your own bubble, as in you're only surrounded with people that are like-minded, you sometimes forget what it's kind of like out there, quote unquote. And I specifically left the city and moved here because I wanted to also, and it relates to Paid and Passion, I wanted to protect my passion from those who weren't yet necessarily getting paid, but were quite negative about the whole thing. And that was a big reason to kind of detach myself and to say, look, I don't want to have to bow. A common problem being in the city, any city, right, whether it's London, New York, a small farm town, is all of us kind of engaging in what you call the social contract. So what I mean by that is that I have friends that I grew up with, but we haven't necessarily, grown in the same manner. And then sometimes it just becomes difficult to think that, we used to hang out when we were 15, but it doesn't feel right hanging out with you anymore. But it's difficult to say no when people are like, oh, hey man, let's go for a beer, or let's go. So seeing the title kind of reminded me of how I've architected and constructed my life to make sure that I just surround myself with like-minded people. And part of that, to be honest with you, has also been making the decision to say, Italy's right for us. Going to this small remote area in Italy is good for us. Her family are from here. Daniela, my wife, she was born and raised from here. We were living in London, met in London, and I think that one of the things that so the getting paid from your passion resonates with me because of the trajectory it can take your life on. But it also reminds me of some things, the right things that I kind of left behind. Because a lot of people are like, oh, you left London, you left the city, people, and I was like, man, I also left behind a lot of relationships that perhaps I wasn't strong enough to say, you know what, I don't want to see you no more, or I'm happy to see you once every 6 months, but once every 2 weeks for a dinner when it's 7 p.m. on a Wednesday, because we can eat and talk. When I'm like, man, I go to bed at 9:30. I wake up at 4:30 because I just want to grind. I can't be having dinner at 7:30. So it's a compound. So anyway. It was crazy because the title, and then maybe watching a clip back in 20, just reminded me of that, and I thought, I'd like to just get connected with this guy and have a conversation.
Yeah. No, I love that. That's why I really do focus on passion, because work is work at the end of the day. No matter what you do, you can essentially make money from it, depending on your discipline. How much are you actually putting in to get out? It is truly you sow what you reap in that regard. So yeah, just even I'm just even like hearing, understanding that you knew what you had to do as far as like boundaries, and I think that's a important thing that we need to know, that even with chasing something just such as your passion, The time that you put in is important, and sometimes those relationships that you used to feed, if they're not benefiting you in a way, that's when understanding what you need to do. And as far as you said that it was best for you and your family to just move to a different area, relocate, and sometimes that's what you have to do. Okay, so I'm glad we got our introduction, how we met out the way. So, could you explain to us a little bit more about your company?
Yeah, sure.
Like exactly like what you guys do and things of that
Yeah,
nature.
yeah. Sure. So we started in 2016. I was living in. Well, I spent so that was when I turned 30 actually, and I'm due to turn 40 this year. And I remember living in Amsterdam. I didn't go there to smoke. I went there because I was well. I'd been traveling every 3 months and moving country, moving city.
Okay.
So it was off the back of I'd lived in maybe Rio in Brazil before that, and then I lived in Lisbon. And I was kind of traveling a lot and doing different things like ultra marathons. I applied to the British military and did a little bit of a small stint. I fought Thai kickboxing. I still up on YouTube that fight. I forget about it. So I was doing all of this stuff, and I turned 30. I was living in Amsterdam, and I had a bit of a almost breakdown. It was my birthday. Got a birthday cake from. I use the word friend very loosely, someone that I'd met in Amsterdam for a couple of months. And I was thinking, what are you doing here, man? You got a happy family back in London. And I thought, right, it's time. It's time to do something a bit more, with a bit more commitment in my life, because I'd started small businesses prior to that, but I'd been bouncing around. I'd started businesses kind of absent commitment, and it was more of just of a hustle. I was like, okay, let's make some money. Okay, right, $5,000, $10,000, cool. Another $10,000, great. I can turn my phone off now and I can travel because
Right.
I just wanna see the world and adventure. So yeah, I turned 30 and I always thought that okay, I'm good at marketing and I'm okay. Well, I'm better at communication, and that means I'm okay at marketing, because that was how I'd managed to eke out my living from my 20s to my 30s trying small ventures. So then I thought, right, let me start a business. And that business at that time was Pearl Lemon. And I think that, as I reflect upon it, the goal of my agency and my marketing agency was to use it as a vehicle to try and build other businesses. So to do things that I was passionate about. So
Right.
our first business was a marketing agency. I used to spend a lot of time working out. I mean, I first started working out of McDonald's with their £1 coffees in the mornings, because that's what I could afford back when I was just at my mum's, and then I had to get out. And I then started to, as we earned more, started to go to a bit more bougie coffee shops, and then I thought it'd be quite nice to have a coffee shop. So then I built a coffee shop, and then I had 3 coffee shops that I bought in a year. They all failed basically, but what was interesting was that one day someone came into our coffee shop in Marylebone and said, "Oh, hey, do you do catering for events?" And I looked at her and I was like, "Of course we do, madam."
Yeah, of course.
And and that first event was for the premiere of Thor's Love and Thunder in London for Marvel. That was our first ever event, and I was like, "Holy shit!" Okay, all right, now time to man up. So we were there in the back of our coffee shop one night trying to figure out, well, how do we make this? How do we do that? And then my business partner got sick, so then my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, she came out and was at the event with us. So then we started the event catering business. So the event catering business is now bigger than my marketing. And there's been this theme of businesses starting like that. So then that was the second business. The third business that came along was I bought some properties in the UK from companies that specialise in helping you find good investment opportunities within property. And I thought, this is quite fun. I maybe think I could do this. So then I set up a property business. And then what happened was the guy that I bought properties from the old company, I reached out to him saying, "Hey, I'd like to buy some more properties." And he said, "I'm leaving to start my own business." And I said, "Why don't you come work with me? Let's just do it together."
Yeah.
So that happened, and now that's running, and that's good. And then we moved to Italy, and I spent, in dollars, around $3,000 to move my cat from London to Italy, because that's a whole. So anyway, so I was, we took a driver. He ran a pet relocation company, and we were in the car with him for 2 days, 1 night, and stayed at a pet-friendly hotel, and he drove our cat from the UK all the way to Italy. And I because I was sat with a business owner because he was the driver and he
Right.
had his website, but it was a landline number, but it was redirected into his mobile. So he was
Right.
taking all these business calls whilst we were in the car.
Yeah.
So
Right.
it was like a personal MBA in pet relocation.
Right.
And I was listening, I
Right.
was like, that's interesting, that's interesting, that's interesting.
Okay.
2 years later, we run a pet relocation business and we
Okay.
take pets
Okay.
from around the world. So
Oh.
that's and there's other stuff as well, but that's kind of been the pattern, if that makes sense, Joshua. I get exposed to something because of opportunity or circumstance, and then I'm like, can I make a business out of this?
Yeah.
Most of the things I do don't work. I'll caveat that. So there's a graveyard of stuff that I do try
Yeah.
that doesn't go anywhere, but that's kind of how some of these businesses are materialized, and the agency ultimately is the engine for it, if that makes sense.
Oh, that's actually pretty interesting. What I'm bringing from that is that you have a curious mind, as far as if you see not even necessarily like a problem, but a situation, you're just trying to see, okay, if someone's asking for this service, I can create a business for specifically this service. Okay. So were you always like that? I guess going into your childhood, were you always like a curious child, or
Yeah.
like innovative, see a problem, want to fix it, lemonade stand type of?
Yeah, it's a good
Yeah.
question. I think that growing up, I mean, I was forever restless, so there was always things that I liked to do with my time. And I think that during my childhood, I went to not the greatest schools. I mean, it kind of closed down a little while after I kind of got out. It wasn't ideal, but what I do see reflecting upon it was certain aspects of school came easy. So the thing that I was good at was anything that was involving words, basically. So that type of stuff was okay. And then I think that one of the incentives in terms of, okay, so the environment that I grew up in, like my parents, economic migrants, Indians that came to the UK for a better life. My parents were working, 100-hour weeks. It was typically my dad who was absent because he would be at work, and then my mum would make dinner, and then when I was a kid, she would rush out to work after. So my mum, there was a period when but so you got, and it's a massive advantage you realise when you grow up, because like really hard work was just very normal in our household. It was just normal, and then there was a almost expectation that, hey, we've come from India to give you a better life. Make the most of it.
Right.
Make the most of every opportunity that you've got. So that meant that from 12, when I started wanting things, hey, mum, I want to do this, do that. She was like, there's no money, go get a job. From 12, my mum was saying, go get a job. So I think that what did happen was that I've been working since I was 12 years old. My first job was a paper round. I did that for a little while, and then I was like, oh, this is a pain. And then I dumped the paper round sometimes in the rubbish, drop half of them. I stopped doing that. Then I went to work as an assistant in a mechanic's garage, where I would just shake the tires, check the VIN number, flash the lights, and they pay me. Because I was working there illegally, because I was 13 or 14 years old, they pay me £2.50 per hour.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I think that by the time I did my first entrepreneurial job where I worked for myself, which I was 23, I had already had about 20 different jobs, Joshua. I worked as a labourer at a supermarket, then I worked on a construction site trying to help them, then I went to work in a school as a receptionist, and I worked in admin. I would just job. So I think that what was always drilled into me from a young age were a couple of things. One, working hard is normal. And it's not even working hard, it's just normal. So of course you work when you're 12 or 13 because you've got to make money. It's not even a conversation, it was just normal. First thing. Second thing, well, if you want things, you've got to figure out how to pay for it yourself. Of course you do, because there ain't no money here. So and I was like, well, I want to go to cinema. I want to go hang out with my mate. My mum was like, well, I've given you £5 a week. And I was like, Mum, £5 a week won't even pay for all of the cinema tickets. She's like, well, so that's been with me. Yeah, exactly. So from a young age, that was always the ethos.
I think another highlight that I even see from that is just, you being exposed to different fields, different industry, different type of jobs to, you kind of see what you resonate towards. Because I can imagine that there are definitely some jobs that you probably hated to work at, You knew that this is definitely not a field that I would want to go into. But then there might have been some other roles where you're saying, this one's not too bad, or I could see my life going in this direction, or that's something that I would assume you
100%.
had.
Yeah, so three examples. Number one, I was working in a warehouse putting phones together with a bunch of people that were all from the Middle East, the Far East.
Yeah.
I think they were Chinese. I was the only guy that was speaking English here, and I was there like packing phones, and I was like, where am I? What is going on? So that was like, this is interesting, but this ain't for me. That was like job number one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Job number two that was really also kind of boring. I worked in an office in admin at a local hospital in their admin department. I'd sit at my desk just doing spreadsheets, and I was like, oh my god, this is so boring. I just. So that was a no. And then the one job out of all of them that I did enjoy was when I worked in reception at Barn Hill Secondary School right before I went away backpacking to South America. And I would be dealing at the front of reception when kids would come into school in the morning.
Okay, yeah.
And they would look at me, they were like, sir, they'd be like, are you a teacher or are you a student, sir? And I'd be like, oh, I'm not a teacher, obviously, I'm working at... Okay, sir. And then they run off. And you just deal with lots of kids all the way from 11 to 18. And it was just kind of fun, just engaging. With, and some of the questions, they'd be like, sir, why are you the only young person with all of the old ladies, sir? And they're like, do I need to call you sir? Just all of this. And that always resonated with me. So, and there's been many other jobs as well. But they were definitely like some kind of experience that led me to believe, right, I want to be around people. Right. I enjoy the like dynamic nature of that, and if I look up about the arc that followed me with everything that I do, it's services and it's people, and the part that I enjoy is selling.
Right. Okay. So, what made you go the entrepreneur route versus a more structured type of job?
I remember being at Deloitte. It was Deloitte are they're a professional services firm. They specialize. I guess they're known mostly,
consulting,
I guess,
or something. Yeah.
Yeah, correct. So I remember. So that was the kind of graduate job that I got out of university, and I remember being at. So I was doing an internship in the summer. This was maybe I was around 20, 21, something like that. And you go to they kind of wine and dine you. This was before the credit crunch, or when the housing market collapsed, like famously in the US back. It would have been in 2005 or 4, something like that. And I remember being at a networking event, and it's like, oh, Deepak, you get to meet some of the partners, and you can talk to them, and it's quite it's something that's quite uncommon. And I remember just being there, Joshua, and having a drink and looking into the eyes of a partner who was talking kind of relatively proudly. I would have been 19, 20 years old or something like that. And this guy was maybe 40, 45, I'm 40 now. And I remember looking into his eyes and thinking, oh, okay, so this, if I perform here really well in the corporation, this is me in 20 years. And I looked at him and I thought, this isn't what I want with my life. I'm looking into the future and I don't like what I see. And it wasn't something that was explicit. But it was a bit of a, oh, is this it? Is this why? Oh wow! Congratulations! You got the internship offer letter. Great! You're going to be working in London, because I was at university outside of London at that time. And it was like, okay, great. You're going to have these networking events, and there's these games and this, and it's a great name on your resume. But then when you get down to, when all of the sunshine and rainbows and all of the crowd stop watching, and you get confronted with the reality of what that is, and of course there's realities of entrepreneurship as well, which we can talk about. But I looked at that and I thought, okay, if this is the epitome, if this is the absolute, premium of what's possible in context of this environment, I know that's not for me. Which is why I did take the graduate job, but I left, I think, within 3 or 4 months of being at Deloitte, when I came to understand not what I did want, but what I didn't want.
Right, and I think that's a great point. Understanding it's okay to my role I work at a college in student services in enrollment process, and so every time I'm speaking with prospective students, especially those who don't know what they want to do, my question is, even if you don't know what you like to do, like tell me what you do not want. What do you not like? I think you can just eliminate, you can find out more about what you
Yeah.
do like by identifying the things that you do not like. And again, even like you may think it's the smallest detail, but it really does help as far as, all right, can you work at night? Are you just a person that can work at night?
Yeah.
Can you stand longer than 3 hours? Do you like blood? Because you do hear a lot as far as, oh, I want to help people, so let me be a doctor. Let me go into the healthcare field. But realistically, every legal job, of course, helps someone in any fashion. So getting into those small details. Do you want to wear the same? Do you care about what you wear to work?
Yeah.
Are you someone who can dress
Yeah.
up? Wear business professional every day? Some people can do that, but there's some people who really cannot wear business professional every day. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
just
No, absolutely.
so many small
I,
details. So I definitely love to highlight as far as you saying that kind of focusing also on the things that you do not like in the sense of things that you do like.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the interesting part about paid and passion. I think that the thing, and even now at 40, I think what I've understood is the things that I'm not passionate about, and that I have areas of strength and passion, and and it's not that I need to distill it down into a particular role. So it's not the case that, right, I am passionate about pet relocation. I mean, I have pets, as you've seen via the videos
Right.
that I've sent,
Yeah.
and I love my pets, but
Yeah.
it's not that I specifically see that as being the thing that I want to do. So one of the things I think that all of that work has given me, it gave me, through experience, some clearer definitions about where I saw my life going. And at Deloitte, I learned that, right, having a very formal corporate job and following a structured path wasn't for me. And I saw when I was working at like an open marketplace where I was putting up all of the metal frames for people to come in, so doing manual labor. And then I went and worked on a construction site for a bit. I was like, this isn't for me either.
Right. Right.
Packing, being in any type of factory environment where I was packing phones. There was another place where I was packing chocolate boxes. I mean, my mum loved it because I came home with so much chocolate, and then 3 days later, all of the chocolate, I planned to nibble at it. I was like, where the F is my chocolate? It's all gone.
Yeah.
And then my mum was like, so that's been really helpful, to be honest with you. And one of the things that I always think about is like, you don't have to distill passion down into a particular type of profession, but there's, as you said, I think what you've hit upon is really, really, really powerful. That where do you see yourself working, in an office or outdoors or inside, but then at home? Do you see yourself working in a place of focus and without distraction, or do you see yourself surrounding the dynamic? There's all, and that can be had at home if you're on calls all day, and it can still be had in an office. So I think that's actually really useful, and then you can begin to map that against, try this, try that, try this, and kind of see where you end up.
Right. So did you have any? I don't want to just say role models, but did you have anyone, an idea that you were, you kind of ended up seeing,
Yeah.
as far as the opposite of Deloitte? You saw someone.
Yeah. No. I know what you mean. I think that interestingly, the role models, like many of us, came from within my family. I think that's quite common. My dad had, through my dad, I understood that there was within him a dream that wasn't realized. And that was really powerful for me. So one of the things that used to happen was that my dad, it's one of the reasons now that I got into the property business. My dad, actually, I pay him to manage some of my properties, because I see the look in his eyes. He doesn't want the money, but I was like, Dad, I see how much you enjoy it. Yeah. And he's a fabulous property manager because he's so analog. He does not email people, he just calls them. And in the world, it's like, payment a day late, my dad's just on the phone. Hello. So I'm just checking why my son's payment has not arrived. And it's like, okay. And he's like, when will it come? And they're like, tomorrow afternoon. They're like, okay, I call you back. Bang.
Yeah.
Tomorrow it gets to 2 p.m. Hello, I'm checking the bank account. My son's paying. I'm like, Dad, you are king. I was like, in the world where people just send an email and it's easy to ignore it.
Yeah.
So my dad, he worked at Heathrow Airport for the best part of his career as a truck driver. And he would drive the cargo for the planes, which was predominantly like the food for different planes. He'd drive it from a depot all the way to the airport. And I always remember that he would come home and his passion was looking through, because this was pre-internet, or maybe there was internet, but it wasn't. His passion was going through the local newspaper and looking at properties that he would one day maybe like to buy. Being like, oh, look at this 2-bedroom house, look at that. And I grew up, interestingly, whilst my parents weren't entrepreneurials, they did do something very entrepreneurial. They left the country, they moved abroad, they figured out how to hustle and move into different jobs and to try and make it all work. And then so my dad was a big kind of role model in that I saw how hard he worked. I saw that everything was for his family. Yeah. I saw that he was never a man that would complain, and I saw that he had an ambition that to have, and I was like, oh, in a different life you could have maybe run a business. So I think that some of what or how I do things today is kind of, you know, stepping into his shoes and kind of living through him. And then my uncle did leave a career behind to start a company, a media company. And then I went to work for his media company for this was back in my early 20s. I started my agency when I was 30, and I worked for my uncle from about 23 to 24 years old, where I got to work in his office. I helped with recruitment. I just helped, and I got to see the workings of what running a business looked like. So they're probably, if I'm being honest, the two kind of role models that I have, like my uncle growing up. Sorry, my dad growing up, and then my uncle when I stepped out of Deloitte and I was like, I need to go get a job. What do I do? And then my uncle was like, come do some work for me. And they would be the two people.
Okay, that sounds really good. Okay. So I definitely would like to get into just the craft of your actual marketing agency. Because now I think it's also inspiring to hear that, you know, you started it at 30. I think, especially, I guess, over in the U.S., it has now become a thing that when we're in our 20s,
start as young as possible.
Like, we really, like, if you don't have, if you're not making 6 figures in your business by the time you're 28, like, you're behind.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't have your whole life together by a certain age in your 20s, it's like, you know, I need to start making my whole bunch of money right now. So I think it's just very inspiring just to hear that. I mean, even again, 30 is still, I think you understand how young you are once you pass that age. And then you look back and say, oh, wow. At the time, you know, you're thinking 18, you're grown, you're old.
Yeah,
until
of course.
You reach 25, you hit 21. You think 21, you're grown until you hit 25. You're like, oh, 21? I was a kid at 21. So I think that just continues to go, you know, every time. You're like, oh, wow. You know, I was in my 20s worrying about things that everybody was, you know, just trying to figure out. So I think that's pretty nice.
Yeah, I think that, I have some thoughts. You know, there's 70-year-olds that call 50-year-olds young man. They're like, oh, you've got all of your life ahead of you, young man. Yeah, there's 70-year-olds that will say that to 50-year-olds. So absolutely everything is perspective because we go through the different arcs of life. And I think that I always said, right, I've got a finite window in my life before I'm going to accrue responsibility. So that means kids or settled family and commitment to a path a commitment to that path and all the things that come with it. So for me, I thought, right, I've got this time to live a bit more selfishly, live for myself and do the things that I enjoy. So for me, my 20s were, I did 30 marathons, 5 ultra marathons. I had my first amateur fight, Thai kickboxing in Brazil by training with pro Muay Thai fighters. I applied to the British Special Forces. I did 2 Ironman. I did an Ironman in South Africa. I did one in Holland. So there was this. And I travelled a lot. You know, I told you I lived in several countries. There was this arc of me collecting experiences. And I think that people, when you're young, when I was younger, still, we don't have a conception of like life is short, but also life is pretty long. You can live pretty well to a pretty long age now, especially with all of the advancements that are coming out now. You know, you've got Donald Trump running the US government, and separate to what people think of him, he's 75 and he's running a country.
Right.
Think how much health has advanced.
Yeah.
To have someone who's got the cognitive,
Yeah, you're 75 and you're, this is when you decide to do this, like 75 years old. Yeah,
exactly. So when you think about it in those terms, so I think that life is long, and I think that I thought that my 20s to 30s will be my period of adventure. At 30, I'm going to do what some of the kids are doing today at 16, 17. But like, okay, I want to start learning about business. My 30s to 40s which is why I defined it as my personal MBA. And my 40s to 50s would be where I begin to acquire wealth or get rich, let's call it. And then 50s to 60s is where I get wealthy. And I thought that's kind of the plan in my mind that I had for my life. And I think that there's no set order or specific order, but for me, I see my nephews, and there's this big emphasis on, right, I've got to make money, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. And I just think, I'm 40, and people at 40 are still thinking the same thing, because there's never a cap upon how, especially if you want to be entrepreneurial. It's not that I'm 40 and I think, you know what, I'm okay, I don't need to make more money. I mean the drivers are different, don't get me wrong, because now I think more about, right, there's this villa that we're buying, and we're thinking about having children, and there's the reason for the income changes a little bit to a degree. But I think that life experiences are really, really important, and there's no rush, I guess, is what I'm trying to communicate, because life is longer than people think. There's a long period of your life where, there's people you could, again, let's just go back to the Donald Trump example. You could decide at 60 years old, right, now I'm going to become a multi-millionaire by the time I'm 70. But you could do that today. So then there are certain things that your body will allow you to do when you're younger. A year and a half or 2 years ago, people are demonstrating, of course, that there's incredible things you can do at all ages. Don't get me wrong. So people at 50 can, there's still professional athletes going all the way up to people fighting MMA like 50 in the UFC. So you could be like, well, Deepak, don't get me wrong, but there's a general, people would generally agree there's certain things that you're predisposed to when you're physically at your peak, which is between 20 and 30. So then it's like, right, if you want to beat your body up, or if you want to have like reckless experiences, I use that with bunny fingers, and there's I think that there's no rush. Because there's time.
You have a easier bounce back.
Exactly.
Bounce back. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
that makes sense. Okay, I get that. So within your marketing agency, how did you actually end up getting that? What was what was your starting process like? Because I think a big highlight for me within this platform is to give those people information that is kind of non-Googleable. You can look up how to start a marketing agency, and they can give you your step 1, step 2, step 3. But we know that life is so dynamic and based on nature and situation that those steps may not always assign to that.
Absolutely.
So just for those people who are thinking about doing anything of this nature, just to kind of actually get some some information that could make it practical for them to kind of follow or look into.
One of the most important things I do think is persistence. I think a lot of people will give up marketing activity or anything too soon. So what I mean by that, if I talk to you, there's many different roads to Rome. So some people grow fabulous businesses by TikTok reels. Some people can send people messages on Snapchat and start to get their first 10 clients. Some people will use LinkedIn, and you can see with a little bit of searching examples and evidence of all of these things, right? And what you don't see is all of the experimentation, all of the failures, and all of the testing that led to the person's $1 million moment. And what sits up. So what I mean by that is that to get to that place where, I just use Instagram Reels, amazing, and I've got 1.5 million views. I've got now 67,000 followers, and now I'm building, a 6-figure business. Some version of this exists in many places on the internet. What is often eradicated or never publicized on the internet is the 1,000 reels you did do that didn't work. The old deleted Instagram accounts that didn't work. The old Twitter accounts that failed. All of the failure because of the way that, the lens, people don't often see that. And I think that there's a big kind of mindset component that comes to all of this, which is, persist. And you have to get comfortable with failing 80% of the time. Because most of the stuff you're going to do is just not going to work.
Yeah, yeah.
And then persisting in the face of failure is, I think, one of, for me, the biggest takeaways. Because there are different strategies. And I've got strategies for, how we generate inquiries. And I've come to understand, as I've kind of progressed and I've been exposed to different entrepreneurs and different business owners that have different mechanisms for success. Some people do podcasts, and at the end, I was on a podcast just the other day. I did a podcast, and at the end, it was a sales pitch, and I was like, "Oh, okay. So this is your hustle. Cool.
Yeah.
You do you, my man. You do you.
Okay.
Do you know what I'm saying? So it would not be forthcoming of me to just pigeonhole success into one lane. So I think that that's something that if you find a marketing mechanism, even if they say, look, if you follow my system, you can start seeing clients in 30 days, in your head assume it's probably going to take me 300 days because of all of my ego, my mindset, my desire to want to tweak the system. I know better, all of you that you bring into it that will in the end build something a little bit unique. But I think that that's, the businesses that I've referred to, by the way, Joshua, each of them took 2 years before anything happened.
Right.
So I had that idea to start my pet relocation business in October of 2023 because that was when we did that car ride. And I said to my wife, I'm going to start a pet relocation business. Yeah. And she was like, no, don't do it. That's silly. You don't do all of this stuff. It was fine. And I was like, I want to do it anyway. And then I set up a website and worked at it, and then just nothing happened for 2 years.
Yeah.
So, and that's been quite common with the businesses that I've been involved in, because there were also 3 or 4 other ideas I had that went nowhere. Yeah. So I think that persistence, is really, really important. And as understanding that any strategy will ultimately take longer than you think it will. And what I see with people is that they often switch tactics. So Alex Hormozy, who's obviously very popular, talks about the concept of more better than you. And I think that the key there is doing much, much more of one thing that you seems to be half working. Because if it's kind of half, I got some replies on Insta and then nothing happened after that, I'd be like, you were almost, you don't know how close to the finish line you were.
Right.
Yeah. So what you have done with saying, you know what, this guy messaged me, let me follow up, let me then see where we can get. Most people don't do that. Most people just kind of give up somewhere. Podcasting doesn't really work, Joshua. I tried that. You're like, bro, you didn't try. I think that Tony Robbins has a famous little comment that I recall that often I'm reminded of right now, which is I think it's Tony Robbins, where he's seen, I have almost never seen someone fail, but I see people give up every day.
Okay. That makes sense too. Okay. I understand. This, I guess it's like that digging in a diamond mine that, you're almost at the diamonds and you could be an inch away from hitting the jackpot, and then you just decide to give up, not knowing that after all the years of experience or all the years of hard work, Just
I think so.
one more month, and you're about to hit
I think
it.
so. I think so.
Yeah.
What I will say that maybe because I appreciate some people will be like, oh, but give me something concrete. I knew from the beginning that I wanted to build an outsourced or offshore team. So I knew that, right, I want to sell in pounds, dollars, or euros. And most of my clients have been, for the majority of my career, Americans. I know that I want to sell in those currencies, but I want to buy in rupees, pesos, and other such currencies. So what does that mean? It means I have an office in Pakistan, I have a strong team in India, I have a team in South Africa, and because of the currency differential, of course, the salaries in South Africa, India, Pakistan, and the Philippines are very different to. So I knew from the beginning that if I can build an infrastructure like that, then that will allow me to create an amount of profit, and that's something that I've stuck to over the years. And now that really helps me because my emails are managed by my entire team in the Philippines. Stuff that we have that goes up are managed by the team in the Philippines. We have clients that get dialogue and communication from the team in South Africa. So I think that thinking, as you said, part of it with, as you described, when you're thinking about what do you want to do with your life, what generalisms can you make? I like to work. So for me, it's like I like to deal with people, but I don't want to work in an office. I like to have freedom of time, so I can, if I need to do something on a Wednesday, I'll just go and do it. And then if I need to work a little bit later, I don't really follow a clock. If you then combine that with, do I want to be the one doing the work? So that's one of the things I think that people also need to understand, that what kind of entrepreneur. If you want to be an entrepreneur, you get out of delivery as fast as you can, because then you're an artisan. So you can't. If you want to run a restaurant, you can't be the chef.
Right.
If you want to be a chef, you can become a Michelin 5-star chef.
Yeah.
But it's a different skill to run a restaurant. And that's, I think, also the other thing that I knew from the beginning, that I want to be the guy that runs the restaurant.
Right.
I don't want to make the food. So even from day one, my first ever clients, I didn't do any of the work. I just found someone to do the work, and then I figured out that journey. So that'd be the other thing that I think that's really important, to be intentional about the kind of business you want to build.
No, that makes sense. I haven't really. Okay, that's a very interesting outlook on it. I just lost my thought. So what kind of differentiate? And I'm hearing. I mean, could you share some of the I guess you could say like accomplishments of your marketing agency?
Yeah,
or
sure.
I guess just so that we can understand like the scale that we're working with.
Yeah. So we've been in business for 10 years. We're not a huge marketing agency. We do anything from maybe $800,000 to maybe 1.2, 1.3 million. What's good about it is the freedom of time it's afforded me, because that business has allowed me to create all of my other businesses fundamentally, because my involvement in it is a couple of hours a week, like 1 to 3 hours a week. I don't meet any of the clients. So there's been stages where I've got it significantly, not significantly, but bigger than that. But I quickly understood that it getting bigger meant me getting much more involved, and then the payoff wasn't worthy of the input. So I thought, this is a nice level, and I should say that that allows me to have a team. So we were 125 people across the different businesses, but 30% of my team, so maybe 40 people, are just dedicated to marketing our own products. So our pet relocation business, our property business. So we have an internal. So I always knew from the ground up that it's very difficult to build a $10 million a year marketing agency. But what I understood was that, can I build a marketing agency that'll pay all of my bills, give me a certain level of life? I could go in Italy, I could live a lifestyle. But I couldn't. I could go and live in like New York, but my cost of living, I would need to live a different life. And I wouldn't be able to as easily start other businesses and just try and fail and try and fail. Right. But now I do have that with what with what I built. So and yeah, we have So I think that's the part also that's useful to be intentional about. So my agency is an engine to build my other businesses, and that was always the intention. That we're going to service some clients, but really what I want to do is to have a income that's big enough to build a marketing engine that's ready to just deploy to be like, right, pet relocation bit. You know, like right now we've got we're building software tools right now. And because there's enough profitability within the agency, even though the revenue isn't high, I've got guys that are recording literally 20 YouTube videos a day to put out stuff on YouTube to try and... So I think, again, you had a really good point that you spoke about when people plan for the future. I think that it is useful to kind of be intentional in respect of, you know, what do you want to build? How do you want to build it? And then you can loosely begin to plan. So I knew that I don't want to be servicing the client in terms of doing the work. I want to talk to the client if you're my client, but I don't want to be updating your social media. I don't want to be posting. I don't want to do that. I'm not going to do that because then I'm going to become trapped. I want to be able to talk to you, have the team do it, but then also I don't want to talk to you again. I want to have it dealt with my team. So how do I do that? How do I comfortably earn, and this is the part that's difficult, how do I comfortably earn $25,000 a month, not posting on social media, not having to talk to anybody, predictably? And that was the journey of my 30s, if that makes sense. Because I could make much more if I was heavily involved, or I had to post on social about follow my 3-step framework. If anyone looks at my socials like, Deepak, you're inconsistent, it's out of date. And I'm like, yeah, bro, because I don't need any of it. So I start and then I get bored. Because, so I think that, you know, that's something that for me, as I've, you know, has always been important. How can I build a business that isn't reliant upon me, like publicly for its success and give me,
Yeah, and then how were you able to do that as far as, because I would say, like, especially now, as far as what you're saying, not that it goes against what a lot of people say or do per se, but it is a different a different outlook on it. So how were you able to get that? Let me just say that first 100,000 to continue to build and build and build to be able to then get a team and then do things like that.
So my first clients came from Upwork. I posted as a freelancer on Upwork, and then I started applying for jobs. What I did in the beginning was I asked a couple of my friends to leave me a couple of... No, I didn't know. Yeah, that came after. Yeah. So I did one or two friends to sign up and leave me a review. I'll do some work for you. Please come onto the platform, leave a review. But then I started just doing any type of job I could get. So I had friends who were like, oh, you know, my minimum rate if I want to do this is like $90 an hour. And I was like, bro, that's not how this platform works. Do jobs for $20 an hour to get the review, to say that you're fantastic. So I did my 9 yards of doing work to allow me to get reviews. And then that allowed me to start winning some of the higher paid jobs. In combination with that, I watched several courses about cold email and growth marketing strategies. And I would message people on Craigslist to try and win work. And I won a couple of jobs off of Craigslist. People that were looking for example, help with something. They'll be like, hey, you know, we could help you. So I used Gumtree, which is a classified ad site in the UK, which is kind of an equivalent to Craigslist. I used Upwork, Gumtree, Upwork, Craigslist a little bit, and then cold email. And they were the kind of mechanisms that where I was focused upon generating the inquiries. So that was the work that I was doing. How do I generate the lead? Then I would do the pitch, and then I'd be like, right, for me to continue generating the work and getting the lead, I need to find someone else to do the work so I can continue doing this, because this is the machine, I think, in time that's going to give me some level of freedom. And it's had its challenges, of course, like anything. It's not been all sunshine and rainbows. But that got me to my first $100,000. And then that began to expose me to more opportunities. So I was doing, I'll build your landing page, I'll write your social media copy, I'll post on this. And then someone came along, my first ever, George Eustianis, I still remember, he was like, Deepak, I want to generate inquiries. And I was like, great. He's like, now I want to do SEO, and I appreciate it needs to take 6 months to get a result. I heard that, and I just heard money signs. I was like, oh, hang on. So you're going to pay me for 6 months before you expect a result? I was like, God damn, this is a good business. Then I was like, what's SEO? How does it work? And then I was like, right, this is what I'm going to sell him. And then he bought from me because he trusted me, and then that started my journey of building an SEO agency.
Yeah.
And that's really become the engine for everything, like generate inquiries from Google, find us on ChatGPT, and that's what the team focuses upon doing today.
Yeah. One thing that I noticed that I love, and I just have to acknowledge the fact of still leaving a door open because you know that you can educate yourself on the topic. So again, the first instinct was when you're talking about the catering business. The catering, when someone came inside and said, "Do you guys cater?" You're like, "Yeah." Obviously, in your head, you're just like, "Yeah, now we do." And now this time it's like, "Oh, can you do this for me?" And it's like, "All right, yes. Now let me go see what you're actually talking about." So really,
Yeah.
just not denying a job or not denying an opportunity based on current ignorance because you know that you can educate yourself
Yeah.
if you know that you believe that you can
100%.
learn it,
100%. And that's mindset. Humans are exceptional. We have gone to every corner of the globe where there is rain, sleet, wind, hail, and fire, and we found a way to persist and survive and thrive. There are few roles in this world that any human isn't capable of doing.
Right.
So of course I can do it. It can't be that hard.
Yeah.
Unless it's something that you're physically predisposed towards, perhaps where there's a quantum of natural talent, like maybe the 100 meter sprint or basketball. But even then, with sufficient coaching and tuition, you could still get to probably close to national standard if you just go for broke at it and be like, right. So my people are like, oh, that's easy. I was like, dude, nothing's that hard. It's not, and it just goes back to that expression. You'd be like, bro, it's not rocket science, is it?
Yeah.
Can't be that hard. Right. It's like, I've got to cater for an event. It's like, all right, so there's food and there's people coming. You got to make sure the food's ready and you'll give it to them. I was like, it can't be that hard. People do it all the time. Yeah. You don't need a math degree to figure it out. Any of this stuff. Yeah. So that sometimes is as always served me well, and I think that's a big takeaway. Like nothing is that hard out there.
Right.
Most things are just hard in here, and that's the thing you need to kind of get over to be like, yeah, of course, like why not?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so so what are your plans, or like what are some of your aspirations moving forward? Are there any new businesses that you could share or anything?
Well, I tell you what, I think,
current...
and this is the part that's interesting. I am trying to figure out my path. It's like, how do I build $1 billion company that's $1 billion in revenue? And I kind of started to speak out loud about that for a couple of years, like 2-3 years ago, because I've always felt that, I've got this level of talent, but the income that I earn isn't a reflection of my talent. And what became apparent to me over time, and I was kind of shown signs along the way. I don't know that I'm spiritual, but I look back and I say, look, there's some signs that I've seen that tell me I've got to make a move. And my plan, I guess a frustration that I have, but it's got me to where I am, and that's okay, was that I stayed in the marketing space for too long. You don't really see billion-dollar marketing agencies. It's not, you see those kinds of numbers in particular services or in software. So I think that now that, as my wife tells me, it's a year of the horse in the Chinese New Year's, because she looks at that stuff, she's like, right, it's a year of creation and growth. And I was like, okay, great. Because I was like, I'm turning 40 this year, so it's time. Because I've said for a while, I was like, right, 30 to 40, I'm going to learn how this business stuff works. I'm going to hustle and I'm going to try stuff. But then I get to 40 and it's like, right, now it's the decade of serious income. So I think that my plan with that in mind is to lean into the businesses that seem like they're going to make a success without my involvement. So my agency is my worst business. It's the most problematic. It causes me the most issues. And I think that's also in part because I always enjoyed marketing, but I've never enjoyed the client delivery. And unless I have a great partner, it's really difficult. So I'd say that one of the big lessons as I travel through my next decade of my life is, and you don't necessarily have to know it up front, but I would say that like agencies are difficult businesses. They're difficult to scale. They're good for making cash, but they're not great for. It's very difficult to build a $10 million a year marketing agency. Talk to ChatGPT and you'll find that there's not many at all. And the ones that are typically technology enabled, and actually they're selling software, which is not then a true service in the same way. So yeah, my goals for the next kind of decade are to slowly make that transition. So my event catering business is getting to be bigger than my marketing agency. Pet relocation, I think, can become, but it's quite early. The property business can become. So it's moving away from where I started and stepping into the shoes of, I think, who the person I want to become is going to be in my 40s. And kind of that's the direction I'm heading in.
I think that's actually really cool that, you built something to catapult the other ones.
Yeah.
And then there could be a point where it's like, okay, my first project, or you can say it like that, your first baby or something like that, proved its service for me, it catapulted it marketed other businesses and companies, but also catapulted your own to the point it's like, okay, these are the things that I want to invest more into now. I think that's really cool. I do want to touch a little bit on something that really got me from your initial emails for like your hobbies. They were ultrathon, 100. That's 100-mile marathon. I mean, how does that work? I mean,
I've always loved running. The furthest distance that I've gone is 200 miles now, which is, what is that in kilometers? I don't know. 203 miles, so 325 kilometers or something like that. And I did that. It took me 69 hours. So I started on a Wednesday and I finished on a Saturday, this was 2 years, a year and a half ago. I think I did it once I moved to Italy. Which as much as I talk about your 20s, I appreciate that people can do it anytime, because it's like, dude, so I think that everyone's got their hobbies, and I think that I don't know what to tell you. I've always liked running, and I've always, with anything that I do, I guess the question I have in my mind is, with the resources that I have that are currently available to me, how far can I comfortably push this thing? And it's been the same with running, and it's always been a good type of therapy for me. So I was in and out of therapy a lot when I was in my 20s. Like, I had problems and stuff, and what became apparent was that running was a great mechanism to calm myself and to manage my energy. So ever since it was clear, because I was having a lot of problems with like anger and violence, and I was seeing therapists, and it was clear that it was quite it's shockingly simple advice, because we're talking about like strategies to strategies for anger management, let's say that. And it was observed that running makes me feel better, like I feel calmer. And she was like, it's no rocket science, Deepak. Just do a lot more. Just do all that. And I was like, okay. And it set off from there, and it's just always made me feel good about myself, and I get a real sense of freedom. And I think that, what's interesting is you traverse through life, and that's one of the things that's become apparent to me, that men, and there's a lot of psychology to support this now that I was asking about it, men by nature become a lot more solitary, with the exception of a few individuals, as we progress through lives, because a man's responsibility in terms of how we're biologically driven is to support the family. So that would be wife or husband, but the immediate family, right? So your wife and kids, and in a traditional environment, okay. So and then as a consequence, your relationships with other men come often to do with like function, meaning that there's a functional reason for us to keep in touch. So I think that running is, something that suits kind of the life that I live now, because I work, and then I want to run to settle my mind, and then I have my wife, and I have my 2 dogs and my cat, and we'd like to start a family now that as I enter my 40s. I'm like, bro, it's like, I'll see a friend every couple of weeks, but I'm good. Like, I'm fulfilled. if as long as my woman's happy and my family are happy and they're provided for and there's still things that she wants, we're moving place and she just went to see a swimming pool contractor and the swimming pool that she wants, I'm like, right, I need to hustle now because she wants this swimming pool that's going to cost like, I need to make more bank than I'm making. So that's the stuff that occupies my mind. Running is such a great outlet for all of that, and I think that that's also why it's been so great that I live where I live. As in my 20s, if you would have met me when I was 18, 19, I'd be in the middle of the party, I'd be talking to everybody, I'd be like, oh, hey, what's up, man? You meet me now, I'm much more like my father. If you meet my father, he's a quiet man. He doesn't say much. He just listens and he does. And that's outside of podcasts, of course.
Of course.
That's kind of the role that I occupy in our lives now.
Okay. That sounds good. Do you have any advice for like anyone who's trying to get into, either marketing agency? I mean, we spoke about so much. So really just add any advice or any nuggets that you would just like to give someone who, whether just watches a clip of this or, watches the whole interview and just wants complete knowledge.
No, I understand. I think that being very intentional about what you listen to is really important. So I understood that within my circle, my immediate circle, and there are people that I love and trust, but there's no one in my circle that was bawling in the way I wanted to bawl. So I had to go and find the gurus within books. So I think, and then you need to kind of shut off the noise a little bit. So if there's something that you aspire or wish to be, then make that thing that you aspire or wish to be kind of your intellectual world.
Right.
So listen and read and repeat the things that you hear, because some of it will start to then go in and go deep. So books have been an incredible part of my journey, like learning, right? So it's like, right, how do you cater for an event? I don't know. Can't be that hard. Let me figure it out. It's like, how do you relocate a pet? The biggest relocation that we did was we took 2 kittens from Athens to Honolulu. We had to figure out how to get it from there. It was an American guy, so I was like, I was like, yeah, of course we could do that. He's like, how much? And I was like, $13,500. And he was like, okay. And I was like, holy shit, he just said okay so easily. I should have asked for more. And then I was like, I've got to figure out how to go and deliver this thing now. And then I was like, so I think that, if you're listening to this part of it, I'd say that, let books and let preachers that you admire provide you the wisdom that you need. And if someone seeks to give you advice, but they're not yet living in the way that you envision, then just be mindful of the words that they preach sometimes. So that's something that I think is really important, and that's what's been helpful for me.
Okay. Do you have any advice for me? And I just love asking for, every guest I ask them for advice for myself. Just everyone has a different experience with the podcast and the interview, and some people know me a little bit more, some people just met me, some people know me my whole life. I just love hearing like different people's advice just for me also.
I think that I like the expression that volume negates luck. So what I mean by that is if you're doing one podcast a day, then for a season until you need to withdraw, do 3 to 5 podcasts a day. And then if you're getting this content, we're 1 hour, 10 minutes on the clock. If you're getting this chopped up into 5 pieces, get it chopped up into 25 pieces. And if you're posting it on Instagram, post it on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. So I guess scale or volume will mean you become way less reliant upon luck, because luck will just find you because of how much you'll spread your message.
Okay. No, I understand that. Okay, I appreciate that. Okay. So I just have one last question for you. What has 4 wheels and flies?
Flies?
Yes.
Oh my god, it'd be probably the car in Back to the Future with Marty McDuck, but what's 4 wheels and flies? Well, a lot of fighter aircrafts have 4 wheels, but they retract. But you don't mean that. I don't know.
A garbage truck.
Oh wow!
A garbage truck because it has
garbage
4
truck.
wheels and flies. So not flies
Okay.
in the sky, but it
Yeah.
has the flies
Yeah.
from all the trash and stuff like that. So yeah, I just
I like
love
that.
always ending a
That's
interview
good.
with a
Yeah.
little joke, a little riddle.
No, I dig it. I dig it. I dig it.
Yes. But yes, thank you guys for again tuning in for another episode of Paid and Passion. Let your passion work for you.